I have missed you guys. I've missed hearing from you, and I know it's been a little bit challenging for me in grad school, posting content, and then just a lot of people are probably burnt out in social media these days, especially with all the dissenting opinions, and then not even just dissenting opinions, but very strong opinions. And sometimes that is really challenging to navigate and exhausting. If anybody else feels exhausted just from reading other people's opinions all the time, I mean, I feel it. I feel it frequently. Just um, people that surprise me with some of the tone of their voice that's coming to the surface, primarily on social media, that may not happen in real life. And then other people who I know have certain strong opinions, but just the way that they're treating other people, I think, is part of what is frustrating to me. And I think, I wonder if maybe that's part of why I have felt so much, felt and thought a lot about this whole concept of connectedness. And really, a lot of the work that I do has to do with this concept of connectedness. And I've recently reserved a website name that I want to develop at some point. I'm not ready yet, but I'm going to need some funding, and I'm going to need some additional people working with me if this is going to go forward, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it just by myself. It's not something that I can just do from on my own. I'm not really sure how to step forward in that. But anyway, the name of it is called connectedchurchcare.com. And the goal of that is, I think, primarily in 5 areas of connection, which has to do connecting our own head and heart, and so that we are more integrated beings. We don't just think things or think that we believe things. We're actually able to live and respond out of what we believe, and that are that we're having this growth happen that allows us to be honest about our thoughts and feelings, so that we can actually experience an integration of them. And then another step of connection is between us and other people, the way that we connect relationally with other people, and particularly in churches, that can be, member to member or member to leaders. Then there's another level of connection that happens between like leaders and members, and so that's part of this advocacy that I'd like to develop, where there's kind of maybe some mentorship for people who are struggling through life's challenges, training for leaders to help actually have these healthy conversations with people who are going through different life challenges, not fixing conversations, and not afraid of trauma responses, but able to engage in the messy process with them. Another aspect of the connection would be spirit to spirit, our spirit to God's spirit, and really connecting, not just knowing about God's word and having conversations about God and saying that we're victorious, but experiencing his presence, experiencing more of who he is, and letting him transform us, and then having that connected relationship with other people where we can share what God is doing, not just, hey man, this is challenging, or I need a new job, or these are my outward circumstances, but God is really kind of pressing in, and he's convicting me of some things, or I'm being reminded of some pain, and I don't want to go there, and so I'm finding myself going to distractions, and I'm not engaging in that pain, but actually God wants to bring about healing through it. So anyway, deepening that connection, and then engaging the church with the community. So basically being able to utilize resources that are already in different communities to help develop a care program that truly cares for the individuals in that community. One of the reasons that this is important is because you may have churches in a particular area of town that is the demographics are heavily leaned towards either one particular culture, or socioeconomic status, or religion cultures, that they tend to either be grouped together, or through gentrification or whatever, for whatever reasons, there are going to be some of those dynamics. And then you have your own counselors, and you have people who have their own training programs in a lot of cities, especially, and maybe even some of the small towns, that could be very beneficial for churches developing care. So anyway, I guess I just really needed to share about that. I wasn't planning to talk about that today, but the whole concept of connection is something that I'm really passionate about. And the whole idea of cultivating a life well lived is so that we can deepen these connections that help us grow, experience more of God, experience life within relationships with other people that are hard and messy, but there's still growth that's happening. We get to experience the fruit and the benefits of it, and not just, oh, I need to do it because it's the right thing to do, or it's a good thing to do, and it's a better thing. It's like I'm willing to press through those challenging times because I see God at work, and I get to see some of the fruit of that, and then I also get to trust God in the fruit that I don't get to see. So the focus of this video, I'm working on trying to bring things down to a clear point, but I also just realize that sometimes because I don't know this in advance, I don't tend to do the videos or the teaching content that could be helpful. So today I am talking about 3 tips for connecting well. And the first one has to do with presence. Presence is kind of actually a big concept. So presence is more than physical presence, but it is a being. So in this day and age where we can't be with a lot of people, depending on where you're at with the whole social distancing things and what your guidelines are or your comfort levels are with other people, you probably have at least some level of limited interaction and maybe what's the right word? Significant disruptions to the interactions that you may have had in the past with people in person. So, what does the gift of presence look like during this time? It may start with reaching out, and you may need to do it for yourself and say, I need this, and that's a challenging thing to do, or to reach out to other people. Just ask God to bring people to mind. Say, who should I reach out to today? Who needs to feel that gift of presence? Who needs to know your presence because through me in some way? Let me just be a vessel, Lord. What does this look like? And then when you're in contact with somebody, what the focus of this really, the gift of presence, is being present, not distracted, not looking away, not thinking about your other things. And it takes some intentional work, especially for those of us who are used to, and I think a lot of us are this way, used to thinking in advance of what we want to say. Or somebody says something exciting or challenging, and we're like, oh, yes, and we want to share ours. But each of us want to be heard and want to be listened to. Maybe you're not able to receive that in this particular relationship dynamic, for example. You do need to receive being heard from someone, but you might be the one to lead the way in showing what that looks like or letting people know that you need that. So, in an example of this, you're in a video conversation with a friend and they start sharing, and maybe you kind of notice that tears are starting to surface, but they're shoving it away. And you could kind of lean in, and I noticed that it looked like you had some tears surfacing. What's going on there? That could be helpful. I don't know. You have to kind of let people know too if that's not something that you are ready to engage in, and you have to respect that of other people. But maybe the gift of presence is this physical leaning into. Maybe it's the way that your eyes look at them, or honoring their comfort level with eye gazing, for example. But even just those facial expressions, I'm pretty sensitive to noticing when somebody is tuning out. And I realize that I have a tendency to tune out. And so I have to be really intentional to say, I'm not going to tune out. Lord, help me to see what you want me to see. Help me to see this person as you see them, not as I think they should be. This is not about me making them change to be who I think they should be or act the way that I think that they should act, but just being where they are now and engaging with them there. That gives people room to express more vulnerability, honest feelings, honest thoughts, and when people are able to share that they're wrestling through something, they are able to wrestle with it a little bit deeper. So I'm thinking about a group that I'm in where the leader was talking about leading like groups, like Facebook groups, for example, but she was also talking about brand strategy and understanding when you need to change your business strategy, for example. And one of the things that she suggested was asking why, but asking why 5 times. And so when we provide that safety for somebody, it's kind of like asking why 5 times. What it does is, well, why gives you an initial answer that's kind of a shallow answer, and the next time it goes a little bit deeper, and the next time it goes a little bit deeper, and the next time it goes a little bit deeper. And that may not be like the most appropriate thing to do with a person because it can feel like you're pushing them. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? But you can do that of yourself. And the reason I bring this up is because when you're in a situation with a friend who is going through something that they're making some choices that you don't agree with, but right now you're focused on presence presence first with them to build that connection. One of the things that I usually say is connection before correction. So in that building of the connection, they start sharing some things vulnerably, and because they feel safe, they may be able to share some of the things, the more of the thoughts that are related to the doubt or the confusion and the wrestling that they have, which makes space for them to work through it. And so many times people are working through the pain, through the challenges, through the confusion or the doubt, and people want to just be quick to shut it off and tell them what is necessary. Well, one of the things that happens in that is that we don't become integrated. We might experience some small term gains, some short term wins in maybe progress in life, but they're not long lasting because they're not actually something that is coming from within ourselves and between us and God. If we're just acquiescing to what somebody else is saying, that doesn't bring the level of change that happens when we're making that choice. And so, as Christian believers, the gift of presence gives them some space to do that, to work through the messiness and to have that choice. Okay, the second tip for connecting well is so in the counseling world, we kind of call this attuning, but I'm going to keep it to a simple aspect of that, which is using their words in some way. So it's like paraphrasing. When someone is sharing a hard story, just kind of paraphrasing how you feel like you're trying to do this and then you come up against this, and really that's what they just said, but you can kind of paraphrase in limited words, short words. Don't use like a ton of words, but it it's really powerful to notice when just those few things might be something that opens up the pathway for someone to feel like, you get me, you see me, you're validating that this is the experience that I've had. And again, it's not about telling them whether that experience is right or wrong in that moment. It's about that gift of presence that's building connection. There is a time for speaking truth, but right now we're focusing on the presence and the way that it can build connections so that you have the right to speak truth into people's lives and that truth can be impactful. Okay, so the third thing is actually engaging emotion. That might be engaging your own emotion to some degree. So if somebody is sad, that doesn't mean that you're just like necessarily weeping with them or whatever, but that there is some level of feeling what they're feeling, that you're sitting with them in that. It's like there's this it would be a huge dissonance if you're sharing a hard story and somebody else is smiling, right? So we know instinctively, I think, to kind of maybe not smile, but engaging our own emotion is kind of an empathy level that goes a little bit deeper. And even when somebody is maybe trying to kind of feel angry, but they struggle with anger, and you're like, wow, I am really angry about that for you. Not in a sense of inciting destructive type of anger, but meeting them in an emotion that's helping them process what's actually already happening inside them. I don't know if that makes sense. So please let me know if you have any questions on that. So just to highlight, the 3 tips for connecting well is that gift of presence, just being with the other person, that allows for more vulnerability and honesty. The gift of engaging your emotion, and I skipped their words, using their words in just small paraphrases. That isn't necessarily saying that I agree with the way that you're understanding or interpreting your situation, is just identifying with what their experience is. That's validating what the experience is. So I hope that's helpful, and I know that it can be challenging to have a lot of those dynamics today because we're not meeting together in churches. A lot of us aren't meeting in small groups in person, that type of thing. But we do have opportunities, and we do need to make time for those opportunities, and we may need to be more intentional than ever in reaching out and checking in with loved ones. Thankfully, it is also the era of so much great technology, and I know it gets exhausting, but just consider what works for you. If you can do like a video Marco Polo, or you can do video calls with someone, or go see someone and sit outside and sit in a distance where they can see you engaging with them and see. So if you're far enough away where you don't have to wear a mask, or with the mask it's a little bit harder because you can't see all the visuals, but you can still be present with them, and that gift can be the difference for someone, to have the courage that they need to take some of those hard steps, to surrender to God in a difficult challenge, or to take a hard step of faith that God is asking them to do. Your gift is pouring encouragement to them in the core of who they are. I hope that's helpful, friends. And I would just love to hear from you. What has been challenging for you, particularly in staying connected with God, with other people, and maybe with your church community? If you'd like to share, I'd love to hear. Take care, friends.